say something. Oh, it's
Okay.
got a red recording button.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I don't think there's anybody else on Zoom, but there could be people on Facebook.
do you have to click the OK down at the bottom?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know I thought it was with your computer.
I have it on mine too.
Cool.
Okay,
We are live.
we're ready. Thank you for coming. Let me see if I can get my computer to go. There we go. Okay.
Yay.
So we thought we could talk about what the role of assessment plays in instruction, which you're probably really familiar with, and give you an overview of all the different assessments that are available to help you make informed decisions. So.
Oh, can I do my little part? Because I
Yes.
feel like I don't
Okay.
have a lot to contribute
Yes,
to
you
the meeting this week. Other than the first thing, and I don't know, dealing with parents when I was a classroom teacher too, it was like assessment was a dirty word. But it's not, and it's, I think we just maybe take this time to understand what assessment means, how it's really helpful. Yeah, and that we can say the word.
It's a safe word.
Yes. So we wanted to ask, what do you use regularly? And how do you use your assessments? And have a discussion about that.
I do the maps testing and then the dibbles. And then with other things, I'll just kind of do like an oral check. We'll be driving the car. Can you spell flit? Or what is like a times table, probably for like my older boys, just like a check-in thing, just to see.
Oh my goodness, spelling words and multiplication times facts, that's a wonderful thing to do in the car when you're driving around. We
Yeah,
used to do
right.
that all the time.
Just to check.
Yeah.
I do appreciate my boys, the teaching textbooks, it's online now, their math that they're doing for 3rd and 5th grade does have quizzes built in, whereas the prior Right Start Math had some assessments, but then like I'm sitting right there, so it's like, what is it? Like, think about that answer, like one more time, like.
Are you
So,
focused?
Right, whereas they're kind of on their own unless they really need help with this teaching textbooks the online math. And so I get a daily report about the lesson they did and like the percentage I got, but then also the quizzes that they get through. So I appreciate that, and it's a little more objective than mom. Like, more time, try to spell that again or whatever. So I appreciate that because it's hard being a homeschool mom. Like I don't have that other teacher I meet with to know what do you see their strengths and weaknesses. It's me, which can be, well, it was a hard day. So yeah, it's mostly maps and then the state testing and whatever.
They call it AK Start.
Okay, that's it.
For this
Yes.
year,
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like every other year it's something
Yeah.
different, yeah.
So you mentioned like an objective view, and so that's like one of the benefits of doing a standardized test, is having an objective view.
Right.
Also, you can compare with how your students are doing with others, compared to other students.
Right. Because we don't have that at
Right,
home.
yeah.
One
Yeah.
5th grader, one 3rd grader.
Can I move on?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my new slide, Joan.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to take this one?
Sure.
So, things that we should consider when using assessments. Are they learning what we want them to learn? This is always a good test of that,
Yeah.
unintended.
Mhm.
Does our curriculum make sense? What are we missing? What can be improved? So you can see, when you get those maps assessments back and all of a sudden, and I love how they break it down, like of course, I'm not gonna remember the breakdowns, but like math, it has geometry as one section and
Yes.
all this stuff.
Yes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you can see, wow, they, were in the, single percentiles for that, but then they did really strong on this, so now maybe we need to supplement what we've chosen or regroup and go back and do that. And then are we preparing students effectively for their futures? And we've had this talk a lot as teachers and with our principal, and pointing out how many careers, and it's not just academic white collar, but blue collar and hands-on, where you are expected to take tests. And a lot of families, homeschool families, opt out because it's emotional or anxiety and all this stuff, and that's okay for a little while. But my mantra, and everybody gets sick of it, is you don't get better by avoiding something. So when they're really young and but definitely by upper elementary and through middle school and high school, they should be taking tests on a regular basis. Because what I've seen in both as a regular ed and a special ed teacher, families are like, oh, they're anxious, they cry, whatever. And so they keep putting it off, or they just don't do it, or not this year, maybe next year. And then we got sick, and then we traveled, and then they get to high school in 11th and 12th grade, and they have to take their first test is an SAT test. And that is like setting them up for failure. I mean, there are some natural test takers, but most of us need practice. And so I've seen it happen, and it's just like a train wreck going, no, don't do it. And or you put it off last year, let's do it. Well, this happened and this happened. And then they get there and the kids deer in the headlights. And I've literally had parents say, well, we'd like accommodations for their SAT, and they've struggled all along, but we didn't do special education because we didn't want to do that. But now we want accommodations as a senior in high school. I'm like, that's not going to go over well with the College Board. So there's multiple reasons, and I probably went a little far off topic there, but preparing them for their future. Kim mentioned, I think one of her sons is a mechanic or something, and he is constantly, and I think it's like a dealership one, and so he has to be certified to do this kind of repair, or this kind of fix. So we have another family whose daughter is working in a bank, and they have a set curriculum, and she has to pass all these tests before they'll, give her different tasks. And so
I didn't think about that. Yeah, my daughter's taken on a different responsibility in her job, and there's like a whole course in testing that she needs to do to be able to do this other part of her job.
So it's hard to escape. I mean, maybe some people can, but I think the majority of us, of course, as teachers, we're constantly taking classes, and most of us had to take the praxis, and
driver's license.
I know, that's what I think, everybody wants their driver's license, right?
Yeah, that is. There's no getting around that one if you want to drive.
And our students learning what we want them to learn, that makes me think of what you said, Rachel, like, I mean, even in the car, we think we've taught our students something, because this is how we presented it. And then when we go to do a quiz, maybe something informal, and it doesn't come back the way we expected. So it's important to do those little check-in.
Or generalization too. They might get it black and white, 3 times 4 equals 12, but you say, okay, there's 4 of us, and we've got
3 cookies.
12 cookies. How many do we get to eat? I mean, generalizing that. I know 3 times 4, but if you give me 12 of something and I've got to divide it by 4, so that's another good way to check our understanding.
And some of it, was like I did want my kids to do that practice. Taking tests, because at some point you have to have a baseline, whether it's a kindergarten or you put it off to 5th grade, and just some of the strategies, because I feel like I don't, maybe as Jack, my oldest gets older, there'll be more assessments, but it's like, okay, well, rule out the ones that you don't know, or that you know for sure, work your way back, or just different strategies. Regular daily assignments we don't come across. There's tricks.
Unfortunately, beat you to the test, but that's a strategy too.
You.
Okay.
Back on
Back to
you, Liz.
Okay, you get to talk about
So
pyramid.
the next kind of round of slides have to do with the types of assessments that are available. Starting at the top with summative, these are like the end of year state assessments that we see. AYP means adequately yearly progress, which is actually no longer a term that's used because we don't have that student left behind act, it's now
Everybody
ESSA.
succeeds.
Yeah. But it is, the teacher accountability, school accountability is a big part of state testing. So, interim assessments, that's actually map testing is considered interim. Any school district level assessments, we used to do writing assessments as a grade level, I love those. We would have writing prompts to students and then get together and score writing. And then formative assessments are like your daily check-ins you're talking about, Rachel. But they could also be the DIBELS progress monitoring tools that they have, quizzes, things like that. And then we were gonna kind of go over some of the.
Oh, we had a fun discussion about this yesterday.
yes, go for
Yeah,
it.
because yeah, it's not really a test that's given to everyone, but didn't you say, Liz, that your school
Yeah.
participated? But it's the one we hear about in the news every year.
Did we just, there was a release about
Yes.
Alaska's.
Not doing great.
Yeah. Well, hardly anybody was, I think.
It's a federal test, and instead of testing everybody, they just do a sample, 4th, 8th, and 12th grade. The 4th and 8th graders, mostly it's just math and language arts, but the 12th graders they do more, so. And it takes about 90 to 120 minutes. Did you ever see that
I
happen?
don't think so.
Okay, it happened at Glacier Valley a few times.
Okay. Yeah, it's at the kindergarten level.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We did
Not
do
a lot of high stakes tests in
maps.
kindergarten.
No,
Yeah.
we did maps and like a DIBELS thing, but the maps was mostly just like how to use a mouse.
Right, I know.
And like
Now it's
not-
iPads.
Yeah, right, which is a little more intuitive.
Yeah.
They had to really, there's a learning curve, but like they said, like, well, we have to get a baseline at some point, and we'll just
Yeah.
start at kindergarten.
Yeah.
And just sort of everywhere.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you were saying you've never seen it happen here for the homeschool.
No.
things.
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And there are links in my slideshow. You can click on this and find
Okay.
how we're doing as a nation.
So the Alaska Star is the one that is in April.
Mhm.
Holly is the test coordinator, for which we are eternally grateful. It's a big deal. I don't know what our percentage is, but Raven, it's low.
Yeah,
Participation.
Yeah, participation, sorry.
but that's where, yeah, students
But-
do have to come in person. It's not like MAP where you can do it at home.
Right, and the good news, in my opinion, as a special education teacher, is that they've added an adaptive assessment maps within the summative assessment, because I found it very defeating for kids in special education, because they were taking a 3rd grade assessment and they were not performing at 3rd grade, so guess what? It wasn't pleasant.
Yeah.
But now there is an adaptive piece, and what I love about maps, and I push for maps, is that it's adaptive. So, you know, if it's too hard, then it'll meet them where they are.
That's cool.
And the other thing is we get results.
Right away.
Where the Alaska Star does not have the best result,
It is a lot.
oh no, it's longer than that.
More? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're still calibrating.
yeah, it's a long calibration.
They're still kind of finalizing.
Yeah, we haven't gotten last year's yet, right? We haven't
Oh.
gotten 2024's yet. So,
Oh.
yeah,
okay.
so that's frustrating, but it's for grades
Shoot.
3 through 9, yeah. And language arts, there's 2 parts, and then math.
You'll get a map score. We got the map scores,
Yeah,
right?
the map scores we get right
But
away.
not the summative part, the standards. So every student will get their 3rd grade standards. So there's like half the test is that, and the other half is the adaptive map score.
Which is great, because we do get that back right away. And it's not timed, which is another good thing.
It is nice.
Just as a person, I get frustrated with time tests because again, as an adult, usually, I don't know, there's usually not a time limit. Like even my husband's an engineer and he took the professional engineer's exam and it was open book too. They all brought their books in and it was like 8 hours one day and 8 hours the next day or until you finished or whatever. So, but whatever, it's nice that it's not timed. Nice and not for those kids that are still here at 4 in the afternoon and you're going, come on, wrap it up. But, cause a lot of times with time tests, you get anxiety. And that's unfair. Well, it's unfortunate because that affects the results often.
Yeah.
It's more about dealing with anxiety than assessing what's in front of them. So.
And the main purpose is public school accountability.
Yep.
However, they've added in that map adaptive piece, so now we can get some good information. And as a former classroom teacher, I did use the PEAKS assessments to help like determine advanced placement in courses. So, and I know other teachers looked at that too, so.
Yeah.
It wasn't just for the
No, and
policymakers.
when my kids were in school, it was called the SBAs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something assessment,
Mhm.
whatever. And I distinctly remember at the last day of school in elementary, they'd come home with their results. So they took it in April and we got it in May. And that to me was a good system.
Yeah.
We're still working the kinks out of this
Yeah.
one. And this is what, year 4 now?
Oh.
Isn't it? Of
think
Alaska
so.
Star?
3 or 4.
It will be 4, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I have to, probably wasn't a good slide for me.
I provided all these hyperlinks to get
Yeah.
ready for the AK Star. They have.
Yeah, that is nice that you can go on to the deed
Yeah.
website and, because so often when we're proctoring,
I'll
the
email
kids-
this to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
the kids are
Work on
giving
it,
us,
Mark.
what am I supposed to do? You know,
Yes.
you literally
Ugh.
have to master the computer.
Right.
All the little tools or again, as I've administered the test, it'll say, highlight in 2 different sections where you see the theme of the essay.
Oh,
And they're
wow,
like,
yeah.
what?
And they start
Yeah.
putting
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, what, 2 times? I'm like, that's all and as teachers, we're not allowed to, we can reread, or actually, we're only supposed to read the directions once.
I
unless
like
it's-
the practice test, being able to practice using the tools and
Yeah.
the scroll down thing,
Right.
which, cause you can miss a lot with that, but I heard that you don't get results. You do the practice, but you don't know how you did on it,
Yeah.
which could
Yeah,
be a
that's
little.
unfortunate.
Well, if they're
because-
still
yeah.
figuring out the score from
Right.
last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, check back with us in
Sure.
2 years, and we'll let you know how you did.
Yeah.
You're in 3rd grade, check back with us in 5th grade.
And I understand that the students need to come to the office for the AK
Yes.
Star to be
Mhm.
proctored here.
Yes.
In this room.
But they get to pick which day and time
Okay.
they wanna come.
So we do a morning and an afternoon, and
Uh-huh.
Holly's pretty good at like saying, do you wanna start with math, or do you wanna start
Right.
with
Mhm.
language usage or reading, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, this is another state mandated assessment for
Right.
science, 5th, 8th, and 10th graders only.
So yeah, and for us, this happens at the same time they're doing the AK Star. It's just if you're a 5th, 8th, or 10th grader, you have the extra test to
Yeah,
take.
you come in
And so
3
they would
times.
just
Yeah.
schedule like another session or
Okay.
do that, tag it on to one of the ones they're attending.
And there are separate little student tutorials. And they have special tools for the science tests that aren't on the other tests. So,
Yeah, because it's a little different.
Then, we have SAT and ACT. The trend, this is feedback, well, the Alaska Performance Scholarship is one of the big scholarships for Alaska students if they remain in the state. And just last spring, they removed the SAT requirement for for all three levels, which was huge. And then as I'm talking to my students, my seniors and juniors who are applying, they are saying the SAT, I think COVID just really shook it up. I mean, it was a huge emphasis and, but I'm hearing from more and more students, oh, the ones I applied to didn't require it, and
Right.
so.
But it is coming back.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
making a
okay.
comeback. So
So-
it's really important when they're looking at the institutions that they want to attend.
Yeah,
If
they
the
need
SAT
to
or
get it.
ACT is required, because some are bringing it back.
Oh, okay, that's good to know, I hadn't heard that. The other thing is, if a student has an IEP with accommodations, they are able to get those same accommodations on the SAT test, but you have to I would allow for 2 months, I think, they say, 6 to 8 weeks for processing, it's usually less, but you never want to go in with that. So if you have extra time, then you get extra time, if you have, text to speech, they'll, all that stuff is in there and, well, I guess it's not a thing anymore, cause the way that Raven does not administer the SAT or the ACT, we're not certified or whatever. So historically, I think one was that the SAT was out at Thunder and the ACT was down at JD. It seemed like they kind of split it. One school you went to one and one you went to the other. My kid, SAT is just math and language or English. ACT has a third component of science.
Mhm.
My kids, my own biological kids, my daughter liked the ACT better and she loves science. I can't remember if the boys had, and they were strong science students too. But yeah, those are some of the things.
Yeah,
to
well,
know.
I think, I can't remember my older two, but the youngest definitely, she took the ACT and the SAT, but wanted to take the ACT because she went into a science field. And so that's probably something to
And-
consider too.
All three of my children took the test twice at the last of their junior year, whatever that May one, and then they took it, the first one you could take in the fall of their summer year, or of their senior year. And all three of them scored higher in one area than the other, and then it's called a super score. So if in the spring you scored higher in math and lower in language arts, they would take the math, and then in the fall, if it was the opposite, they'll take the two high.
Yeah.
So, and Ryan says that's called a super score, and so that's nice, and it was worth doing because it made enough difference. And it was, it's that whole thing, maybe they were more on, or maybe they studied a little more, but you never know.
Yeah.
And then I did on one of my, I went up to Anchorage for the curriculum fair early on at Raven, and there was a gal there, and her business was SAT prep, and she was a homeschool teacher, mom, and had 4 kids, and they couldn't afford college, so she cracked the code pretty much, and so that it's called SAT prep, and it's more about taking the test, not about the content, and she's really open. I am not teaching you the content, I am teaching you strategies. And anyway, all of her kids got college paid for because
But there are a lot of prep
yeah.
courses out there, and
Khan Academy's free. They have
yeah,
one.
Khan Academy has one too. There are a couple, I think ACT has one through.
Yeah.
And if we can even add it to your ILP, and you can get like
Yeah.
half a credit for
Yeah,
the
a lot
prep.
of high
We'll
schoolers.
pay for it, we'll
Yeah.
reimburse you for taking the SAT and ACT if you turn in your scores, so
Yeah.
We make
That's
it
good
as
to
easy as possible. And the one that's not mentioned up here is the work keys.
Yeah.
Because that's really important for students that maybe are taking more of a tech or a
Yeah.
route,
that
and
also-
that's available at the job center.
Yeah, and the APS would cover those, they also, not just colleges, they'll cover AvTech and any kind of voc ed for our students, if you stay in the state and go to a state, yeah,
So
so,
there's a lot of programs that the Alaska Performance Scholarship will help cover.
yeah.
And it's still available for I don't know how many years now, I think that changed too.
There's
So
like
if your student goes outside and gets their degree and comes back to Alaska and wants to get a master's or something, those funds are still available.
Or a lot of kids will go for a year and say,
Yeah.
yeah, it was too scary, and come
I
back,
miss
and so
Alaska.
then they'd
Yeah.
still get, that rest of the 3 years in state, and it really, the price really went up, the numbers really went up.
Yeah.
Significantly, which is good.
So I try to encourage students, even if they think they're going out of state, to apply.
Yeah.
Cause, okay, so we kind of got off topic.
Yeah.
We were all talking about that, but it wasn't there, so, okay.
No, that's great.
Yay.
Math testing?
Okay, yeah, we
Okay.
could do that. I
Okay,
thought I
it's
talked.
considered interim and is offered in the fall, winter, and spring. It's not required by the state of Alaska, but it's offered by our school district. It's optional, highly recommended by Joan.
Yeah, the principal, great.
It's great, we like it, teachers generally like it because it measures student growth over time. And it's adaptive to where students are at in reading, math, and language usage.
And nice, cause you don't have to leave your home too, cause a
Yeah,
lot of
right,
them,
you can do
when
that.
you have 4 to tow, that
Yeah.
you can, and I think it's more natural for the kids, it's like they're comfortable in their own home,
Sure.
there's not as much,
Yeah.
they could be more distracted too, but,
Well, there's that.
by siblings, but, just the, the ease of, you don't have to load everybody up in the
Right.
car and come in at a specific time, and,
Yes.
Yeah.
well,
Well, and
Holly
then-
has time blocks, but
And you
still.
do it we do it 3 times, so it's
Yeah.
like, it's.
Yeah, and
it's like the
again,
once a year, it's like, ooh.
Yeah, and again, it's that, oh, now we're doing this, when you make it more matter of fact that, oh, now it's testing time,
Mhm.
and the more you do it, the less intimidating it is, so.
And it's not a high stakes test, which the other ones generally are because they're holding public schools accountable. But this one is not used for that.
But you are practicing test taking skills, which is huge for
Yeah.
those high stakes
Yeah.
tests. If you do this 3 times a year, then once a year come in for the bigger one, it's not as big because you're like, oh, it's this kind of test.
Yeah.
Cause I don't know that they know that it's adaptive or on grade level or whatever, so.
And the kindergarten, first grade tests have audio that the students can listen to and which is helpful, so they don't necessarily need to be readers. But there is a huge jump when you go into 2nd grade because you'll start reading. Yeah. It's a big jump, but it's like a cliff. But you'll get there. And I was gonna, go back. They've developed something called a RIT score.
Yeah, what is that?
It was based on the scientist that came up with this scaling system, Rosh, I think maybe was his name. And so it has the same meaning across grade levels, which means your 3rd grader and your 5th grader could get the same RIT score in math. Which means they are operating around the same.
So it's like a raw score, like if they both have the same number, like a 3rd grader is performing high and your 5th grader is performing low, is that what I understand? It's
Yeah.
the same score?
True, yes.
Okay.
Yes, for a teacher.
Because it's adaptive.
Yes,
Okay,
you're right.
okay.
So so that it's normed and you don't see that in the RIT score. You usually see that in the percentile ranking that they give you.
Uh-huh.
So if your 5th grader's RIT score was, let's say, a 225 in math, and they scored in the 80th percentile, that means they're scoring pretty high.
Yeah.
There were like if there was a running race and there was 100,
Sure.
there would be 80 students behind him.
Yeah.
And so in the top 20. And if your third grader though scored the same RIT, their percentile ranking is probably like 99.
Yes.
It doesn't mean your third grader is doing 5th grade or 12th grade work. It means
Okay.
the average 12th grader also scored that
Wow.
same RIT score that your third grader got.
Okay.
Yeah. And that can be confusing
Yeah.
for families. They're like, they go, the RIT score, that's what 11th graders should be getting. So they're doing 11th grade. No, it just means the average 11th grader also got that score. And it's nice to have that norm data if your child is scoring way up there in the 90th percentile. You might look at accelerating them to higher, next grade level content, or enriching, expanding. And there are sample tests now. There's a link in my slide where you can see that. One thing I did when I taught was I shared with my students their MAP scores, and I shared their reports with them. And I felt that they deserve to know what the scores mean, because they'll see at the end, they see the score,
Oh, I
the
know.
RIT
Oh,
score.
yeah.
My kids, I used to carpool and they'd, what'd you get in your maps? What'd you get on your maps? It was hilarious. And they were always trying to beat each other.
So I would print off the student progress report, like there's a 1-pager, and I would share it with them and try to explain what it means, because it'll also tell you their strengths and areas to focus on within the domains. And then we would create little goals, which is what this page is about.
Oh, cool.
This is for a pretend student, a 5th grader, named I'm a Genius. And they scored, like I listed their strengths was geometry was a 244 RIT. And things they could work on was measurement, algebra. And then they also tell you, you'll see in all the reports that Holly emails you, they'll tell you what the typical growth would be by the end of the year. So I would share with my students, this was your RIT score in the fall. By the end of the year, we'd like you to grow by 10 RIT points. And then we would keep track of it. And we did it for math, reading, and language usage. And then on the back are I would take those areas to focus on and identify those vocabulary and things they could work on.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And I know Holly sends all those details to families now with the profile. It's called the student profile. So you wouldn't have to do this necessarily, because Holly can just share it with you, but it was nice to give the students a 1-page thing.
Cool.
And then there's a simplified version without all the detail on this one.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And we would actually fill this out, provide it to the students, talk to the students before, and they would have it with them while they were testing, and then they would record their score at the end. And we would say, did you make your goal or not? And we would reflect on how did you do? Were there things you saw that you had never seen before?
Because your teacher hadn't introduced them?
Yeah, right, exactly. That was great for conversation.
Yeah, that's nice to know about the RIT score. I mean, I would sometimes take a screenshot of like when they finish their test, and I was like trying to like decipher what they just covered, because it has like a goal score,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd have like their RIT score, but then it'd have a breakdown of how they scored in like each, like in math and geometry versus measuring versus, and I was always trying to like decipher it before I got the student profile, because it'd be a few weeks, and it was like, without like the percentages was, I found so much more helpful, because it's like a RIT score is like,
Yes.
okay, but
Right.
the goal score range, and I was trying to like piece it together.
It's a thing.
It's a whole thing, yes.
We can share with you the normed scores that tells you like
Okay.
the typical the average fifth grader at the beginning of the year will have this RIT.
Okay,
And they'll do it for fall, winter, and spring.
okay.
And I would sometimes share that with my students, sometimes I wouldn't, depending on the class and the students, cause I was like, it's about you, it's not
Sure.
the average score that's important, it's your score and making
Yeah, when Holly sends out that report, it says the district's average fifth grader scored this, and then you scored this. It seems like there's a
There's like
just-
a less.
Yeah, and
Yes,
then-
yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting to say, oh, you know,
Well, that's interesting, but this, if it's district-wide, it's, we're in
It-
the YK.
yeah,
Okay,
so it's
I was
river
comparing it
schools
to
and all the other
Juneau,
Raven.
not
Yeah.
other, okay, it's
Yeah,
other
no, it's bigger.
homeschool.
It's
Yeah, okay.
definitely, what do we have, 3,000 in our
I
whole
kept thinking
program?
Juneau.
But that's not between grades 3 through 9. Well, anyway,
Right.
Well,
It's
that would be
those
the
that
river
took
schools
it.
too.
Yeah.
It's so not just Raven, but
Right,
all
yeah.
of YKSD.
I don't even know how many river schools there are anymore, 10 or so?
Nine?
Probably.
We've,
Yeah.
when I first started, there was only 6 or something, but they've incorporated a lot more.
I'm happy to help you, I love doing these, I get,
Mhm.
I nerd out.
I'll see do these if you wanna do it. Well, good to know, yeah, I didn't, cause yeah, sometimes I'd save, try to write down their score, and it would give that goal range, and I was like, I think you're on track, like, I'll wait for the report in a few weeks and let you know,
Yeah,
so.
I like the bar graph,
Yes,
yes.
yeah.
I
On
like
this
the
color.
line graph, there's a line
That
graph
was nice
option.
too.
Yeah, I'm more of a bar person, not so much a line, I like
Tracks.
the bars.
One of my kiddos though is like this, like with every test, so it's like something happens, like it got closed before, you know,
Oh.
early on in the test, and thank goodness Miss Holly, like on occasion, like reset it for me, cause we were like 6 questions in, and I was like,
Oh,
what happened? And she was like, I can do it, I mean, I didn't know that, but we have like data that's like
Hmm.
all over the place, it's like, oh god. So I'm curious how he does when he does like the AK star one, cause over the past couple of years, I'm like, I have no idea what we're gonna get, like. We could
Yeah,
be-
I don't know if that's, yeah, if it's just,
There's definitely a summer slump.
Yeah.
Students that already score high tend to have variable scores, depending on
And I've seen, I've
the
like
questions they get.
Sure, okay, and it is adaptive, but I've also had like, one year we went like started super, I'm like, yes, and then we just went down with like this winter and spring, like, oh gosh, like, whatever.
yeah, it's.
I try not to
almost
live
like
and
a
die
person.
by it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
As
yeah.
the mom and the teacher, it's like, this is a pure reflection of my education.
No.
Oh no, there's so many factors. And
Right. Oh,
Kids with focus problems, you know, they are often all over the page, you know, if ADD or autism or something, it's like this, and you're like, okay, so
It's
at
just
10
that
o'clock
day,
on Wednesday,
yes.
you crashed,
Yeah.
and that's why you got that score, but look, on Thursday, you
Right,
were in the zone and
Yeah,
you climbed up and you did
Yeah.
this, so,
and I mean, I have seen growth.
yeah.
They do make growth even
Yeah.
though there's a few
yeah.
Yeah.
wild points
You know,
of
I
data
think
out there.
that's the important part of not putting all your emphasis on just one test and just being able to
Sure.
look at all of them too as a whole, because, you know, like Joan said, on a specific day, you might
Yes.
not be doing well, and
It's like the stock
this-
market, you just gotta ride it out.
There you
yeah, it
go.
might not be the
That's
best
So
indication
your
of,
portfolio
Sure.
for quarter 1 was down,
Yes.
but-
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah,
And I really think that's important to communicate to students.
yeah, you were not a test,
Yes,
you were a person,
yes.
and this is where you were at 10 o'clock on a
Right,
Wednesday.
and it, you know, and I would think it's even harder, like in the homeschool environment, because even like my 3 daughters were also different and
Yeah.
you know, one worked so hard but maintained a C average, and then there was the one that was just like, well, it's easy, everything's A's, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just being able to communicate these results and all the testing to their individuality.
Sure.
Yeah, and, yeah, cause my kids would all, you know, may throw their tests down on the kitchen table, and two of them were better testers and they always got them. And the one was hugging the middle line, and they'd even say, Andrew's smart, why is he on the middle? And I said, well, he's not a good test taker, and, you know,
Yeah.
and that's fine, that's
facet of-
one, but we know that he's smart, so
Right.
she's not good
Right.
at this little,
Yeah.
monitoring device, but,
Right. My son is like all over the place. What you can't measure is like, he's become a much more diligent student
Yeah.
this past year. Was that reflected in a maths test?
No.
But he's so much more focused and is like buckled down and like, okay, what am I gonna get done today? It's like,
Yep.
I never thought we were gonna see this day. Like, hallelujah. Oh my gosh, I thought this was at least a few years away, but no, he's, okay, I'll get it done. I'm gonna get it done. I'm like, oh my God. I didn't think we were gonna make it.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes those have the best work ethic because
Yeah.
it takes them longer and then they just like get her done,
Yeah,
so,
which is not on the maths test.
nope,
There's no get her done
no,
section.
nope,
Okay, I'm moving
Yeah.
on. Is that okay?
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, these are fun because we just started doing the dibbles last year with the Alaska Reads Act. And I don't know, you know, I've heard I've heard different things about how people react to them. I like, you know, that it's such a short
yeah,
little
it is
snapshot.
nice, yeah. It's,
And it does give you some good information. And I really like this one because I think of so many of the tests, this one gives you direction on what to do,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah, that's what I like about
Yeah.
dibbles. And then it's
Right.
It is cool.
Yeah.
several times a year and
and yeah,
quick.
and it's, I love the fact that it's a minute.
yeah,
I put 15 to 30 because they've
Yeah.
added the vocabulary component.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the older they get, there are more components,
Yeah.
but when you start out, it's pretty darn quick.
yeah.
But even then, you know, definitely the very least a slot is 15 minutes if they're the younger ones.
Yeah.
And the older ones, maybe 30, probably wouldn't take that long, but that's transitioning and
Mhm.
getting all the stuff in order.
Yeah. What would be helpful is like, following up with the results and, you know, if a student is struggling, you know, what resources can we use and I believe the state is offering some support for that. I mean, Lexia Core is the, one of those
Yeah, we're
tools.
loving that.
Yeah, that's awesome, that's available for any child.
Yeah. No, they're all doing it. It's good.
Okay. Excellent.
Authentic assessments, so all of them. You can do the summative, interim, or formative. And involve the application of knowledge and skills in real world situations, scenarios, and problems. You want them to use higher order thinking skills. So actual writing for a purpose and performances and design and creation of products. And those are often evaluated through rubrics. So this is that generalization of knowledge that's really important. And I think more interesting, you know, that like writing a play or, you know, a lot more skin in the game or motivation, you know.
Yeah.
And then that picks up those kiddos that maybe don't do as well with the real dry black and white, but they might be very creative, hands-on, and that is another way to test their knowledge. And,
Yeah, it's like the projects or the assignments or, yeah,
Yeah.
portfolios.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could be your culminating project for the semester and the year.
yeah, at different times we've had like, I don't know if we called it a talent show or something in the springtime, like
Oh.
April or May. And it's fun, you know, like the science experiments or and all that. And it's been, and we've talked about a wax museum, although I don't know if we'll get her done, you know, where they pretend they're the person and, anyway, so those would be good examples of, and
Yeah.
performance, you know, we had the kids play their musical instrument or, yeah, so, yeah, we have kids involved in a lot of different real creative things. Dance and arts and music.
This is what I see on a lot of the work samples that are submitted. I
Yeah.
do see tests sometimes, but I do,
Yeah.
mostly it's these authentic assessments.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's helpful to have a rubric for your students and to show them the rubric before they start.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
they know what to aim
the
for.
expectations are very important.
And to also have them evaluate themselves on the rubric before you evaluate them or you do it together. That's also helpful. Which leads into the next slide. Is having students do self-assessments. I had this in my classroom. And I would like just check in like, okay, how are you feeling about decimal division? They would just show me on their fingers, you know,
That's funny.
privately. How they're doing. But it's really empowering to have students do the self-assessment. They can, exit tickets is a term used a lot right now, like, all right, it could be a really simple thing, one question, one problem. If you say, okay, if you wanna go play on your Nintendo or PlayStation, I don't know what it is now, then show me like 25 times 40, and they have to do that before they can go. Yeah. There's another example in the handouts for a self-assessment or reflection that I used with my fifth graders. One side has like a checklist where they rate themselves on work habits and classroom agreements. This, you can modify this for your setting. But they rate themselves and then you rate them and you have a discussion. And there's also questions on the back is like, what's going well for you? What's not going well? If you could change one thing, what would it be?
I never thought to ask my kids to assess themselves. I'm curious what they would say.
They tend to over. So it just depends on the kid.
It does,
But it's
yeah.
either really low
Right.
or really high.
Right,
Yeah.
well, I know, even my fifth grader, somebody's just like, I caught an error in his, he's like, I got the math problem wrong, I don't wanna get it wrong again. So I'm looking over and he like just wrote 18 as 81, I was like, what, are you guys like, I'm dumb? I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
just try again, okay?
move on.
Yes, so I'm curious what he would say on any given day.
Okay. We're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Best turn.
Okay.
Oh, it is?
It's been forever.
I've been over here thinking a lot. Yeah, for assessments, highlight areas of strength. True. It's not showing you what you don't know. This is what you know and what you can do. Yeah. And I like that shining light on opportunities for growth. So it's not what you don't know, it's what you don't know yet.
Yeah.
What you still get to learn. in truth, we guide students, parents, educators to make informed decisions to support student learning. And I think that's really important, using assessments. I've had several families this year, through the process, it's like, well, this curriculum's not working. And so assessments, can kind of help you determine whether you're using the right type of curriculum too. And they lead to improved outcomes, and the more that we do and different types of assessments, then I think our students will get comfortable with them.
Cause they're not going away.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be scary.
And here are some resources. IXL has some diagnostic assessments.
And we have so many students doing accelerated reader too, and that's almost like there's assessments in there, that's about reading books and getting
Yeah, comfort.
tested on it.
So
And they're
nice.
just like, we have students that are just eating that up, it's more like a game,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep, and
I
like
like
core starts with an assessment and
Mhm.
puts them where they need help. There'll be Max also. And then I put some rubric resources in there too. These are all hyperlinks I'll share with you.
I like rubrics, they're fun.
yeah.
Yeah, I've even created rubrics with students too.
Hmm.
So what do you think is important for this project to have?
Mhm.
What would be a exemplary whatever?
Yeah.
They make the criteria with you. Okay.
Rachel,
Yeah, so,
you sound like you're doing plenty of
Yeah.
assessments, that you're doing maps and you're bringing them in for the AK Star,
Yeah.
and then you're doing check-ins in the car and
A little.
Yeah,
through their curriculum.
yeah.
Is there any support or any takeaways of, I'm gonna try this, or
Yeah, I just,
I'd like to know more about that?
some of it, and one of the reasons I came was just to better understand, like when I'm reading the map score, like what am I?
Yeah.
I mean, the report does a good job.
Yeah.
I have to wait for it, but that's not the end of the world. But I do appreciate the breakdown of like, this is where they are, this is where they were, this is where the nation is.
Yeah.
Projected growth.
Yeah.
Stuff. So it's good. It's hard for me not to like use that as like, this is the measurement of our self-worth, but
yeah.
I know better, but it's
Yeah.
hard.
It is.
Cause it's like, look right over this. I know because I told it to you.
Yeah.
But that's it's just one day and one.
And that's why when you do it multiple times a year, it's not all eggs in one basket.
Yes, that is
So
true.
it's spread out,
Yes.
and you can
Yes.
break an egg anywhere on the process and it's
Sure.
fine because you got all these other eggs.
That's true.
But
That is true.
so
Yeah.
any questions that you have about
So.
how fun assessments
I
are?
can put the normed data for maps so you can kind of see.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah,
The profile stuff is helpful, the reporting it later, but sometimes it's like, I wanna know right then.
yeah,
Cause it gives like a growth score, but sometimes like the breakdown is kind of funny, and it's like, okay, they do good, and I get the profile, I'm like, whoa, I interpreted that differently. So that would be helpful, the normative scores. Yeah, I do like doing these because I don't administer a lot of tests in I only have fifth, third, and kindergarten, but I've been making Jack do like little history quizzes, just to practice taking tests, but also it's like, we just don't do a lot of like proper tests, like maybe a classroom setting would do, so I do these.
Yeah, no, you sound like you're model homeschool student or model.
Yeah, I remember when I was teaching somebody doing a seminar, for MAPS test or something similar to it. He's like, well, would you rather have a diagnosis or an autopsy report? It's like, because he was talking about like just putting all the eggs in one basket for
Yeah.
one standardized test in the spring,
Mhm.
and then everybody moves on. You get the scores over the summer that you've already passed the kid on to the next grade. Like,
Yeah.
well, what would you rather? It's like, oh, that stuck with me, and
That's a good way to put it.
I'd rather have a diagnosis than an autopsy report.
Wow.
I know, but it kind of framed it
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a nice way, a real way.
yeah,
Remembered that.
well, it stuck with you, so that says
Yeah.
something after all these years.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad Raven provides it, because it feels like a nice check-in for me too. It's like, okay, are we on track? Is the curriculum we're using working? And where are
Yeah,
some
and we like it too as
holes?
advisory teachers,
Sure.
just that objective assessment of where the kid has strengths and where the kid student might have challenges, and where we should maybe focus on emphasizing if we need to or not.
I just remembered about pre-assessments. I didn't put it on my
Oh,
slideshow, but I
yeah.
use those a lot.
Yeah.
Before I'd start a project or a unit, I would just.
Yeah, what do you already know?
Right.
Yes.
So that we're not,
And that can save time too,
Yes,
you know, especially in the
yes.
homeschool environment where
Yes.
you're not teaching to a whole classroom full of people.
Right.
It's like, okay, you're comfortable with that, we can just breeze over it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've done that with just like a science, like check in, like, okay, we've talked about stars, what do you already know about stars?
yeah, what do you remember?
Yeah, like, oh, well, moving on.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be any big formal thing, it could be a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Wow,
thank you.
2:00 on the dot.
Wow. Wow.
Good, good with time management. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, oh, thank you. This was nice. Just, yeah, it was kind of like, I know all the maps are important, but I don't want to, it's what I'm reading. I kind of figured it out, but.
Oh, sure.
We're live and we're recording.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I forgot about the pre-practice.
Oh,
test
for
things.
AK Star.
Yeah, oh, and even maps too, like I
Oh.
feel like we've done it once before and then I forgot. I mean, they